Welcome to Literary Libations with Librarians. And this week we are sharing books that we picked solely because of the cover art. That's right, librarians do judge books by their covers. If you are interested in any of these titles, there are various ways to get your hands on them. The first and quickest is probably to contact your librarian at your local branch of the Monroe County Library System and speak to them, and they'll be happy to assist you. If you prefer to do it on your own and get your hands on a physical version, that would include hardcovers, paperbacks, CD, audiobooks, and large print. You can see the web address for our online catalog on your screen now. And some of the titles you'll see are available in a digital format. And we have two different platforms that provide us with digital content. The first is Overdrive, which you may also hear referred to as Libby. Libby is the app for Overdrive. So when you go into your app store, you can search by Libby. And Overdrive provides downloadable ebooks and downloadable audiobooks. And then there is also Hoopla, which provides downloadable ebooks, audiobooks, and also movies, music, and graphic novels. And the fabulous thing about Hoopla is that there is never a wait for any of the titles that you see on that platform. So if you see it, you can download it and start listening or reading immediately. And so this week, since we're going to be talking about cover art of books, our introductory question this week is, what is your favorite piece of art? And I am Jennifer Graneski, and I am the community librarian at the Dundee Branch Library. And on your screen now, you will see my favorite piece of art, which was on display at the Toledo Museum of Art several years ago as part of their Playtime exhibition. And the title of the work is called Animation. And I'm not going to pronounce the artist's name correctly, so I apologize now, but the artist is Stenia Koinka, and the last name is Kohnke. And the work that you see is 9 feet by 13 feet. It's really big, and it's just this huge, amazing wall of stuffed animals. And my son and I sat down. There was a bench right in front of it that you could sit on, and we played I Spy with art for I don't know how long when we were there. In fact, we even got to the point where we set off the alarm because there was a red line on the ground, like a laser line. And I went over and I didn't realize I would set off the alarm if I broke the plane of that red line. And I went over to point where one of the stuffed animals was out to my son, and whoop, whoop, whoop. But as soon as you step back, it stopped. So, and if there's ever been a piece of art that really just called for wanting to touch it, it's this one. Because you just, all the kids that came through were always like, they want to go over there and hug them and squeeze them. And it's, no, these are different than the ones you have at home because this is art. But I just love that it's so playful. It has a nostalgia factor to it. It has a fun factor. So that's my favorite one. It's a good memory of time that I spent with my son. Also with us this week, we have Isabella Arnold, who is a processing clerk at our administrative building. And Isabella shared with us her favorite work of art as well. So tell us a little more about this, Isabella.
So this is a painting of my dog, Toulouse, the theme for today. And my father actually did this painting for me as a wedding present. I'm very lucky, and both my parents are artists. Well, my father's more of a hobby artist, and so he just took up oil painting when we went to college as a empty nest syndrome, and he's fantastic. So this is actually quite a large painting that he did, and it's my favorite little dog. And then I have a side note, though, because, oh wait, I'll save my side note, never mind. So, because I just realized you can't really see me because we're in the tiny things.
Yep.
But so yes, this is my dog Toulouse, painted by my father. It has no title besides Toulouse.
Toulouse.
And
That's amazing. I didn't know your dad made that. That's incredible.
Yep, and
beautiful.
he did all the mosaic work around it as well.
Oh,
Wow.
Yeah. He's a jack of all trades, and he's super artsy.
That's incredible.
He has a man cave in our basement, in my parents' basement, that he paints all winter long.
That's so awesome.
Ta-da.
What a lovely piece. That's amazing. Just a lovely thing to have in your family. Hello,
Yeah.
Bruce. And also with us this week, we have Jen McCarty, who is a reference librarian at the Ellis branch. And this is Jen's favorite work of art. Please share more, Jen.
Oh, I'm kind of embarrassed with my art now. When we came, to discuss this question, like, I actually love classical art. I love modern art. Like, there's a lot of real art that I love. My background is Van Gogh. Like, there's a lot of artists that I love. But when I thought about like art that actually makes me happy and things that I actually have in my house, this is the favorite artwork that I have in my house. It's Superheroes on the Toilet, and it makes me laugh, and it is in my bathroom. It's from an Etsy seller, Wyatt9, if you feel the need to also have superheroes on the toilet in your bathroom or in your house in general. They have a whole line of superheroes in the bathroom. Like, there's some like in the bathtub or brushing their teeth. And this just makes me laugh, and I feel like it's really very much my family, in that it's playful and it's colorful, and Thor's hammer just like sitting on the toilet seat like cracks me up every time I see it. So this is it's a silly piece of art. It's certainly not a serious piece of art, but it's one that brings me joy.
I love it. That's what art should do. Like, art is supposed to make you feel something. So if what that feeling is happiness, that's a good thing. Also with us this week, we have Frances Randall, who is a clerk at the South Rockwood branch. And Frances, tell us about the piece of art that you chose.
This is something I made. After college, I went back to the College for Creative Studies to take an icon painting class with this woman. She was really wonderful. She was actually from Eastern Europe, and she had studied Russian icon painting. So we went through all the coursework and how you develop something like this. And then we did a traditional one. I think mine was of Jesus. And then she said, well, you can do something of your own choosing. So I chose my dog.
Goodness, that's amazing.
And it was really great. It was a great learning experience, and they're very time consuming, and there's a lot of detail. And she showed us all the traditional ways to do it. Plus we had to buy pigment, powdered pigment, and it was done with tempera paint, which you mix with eggs, which after a while it starts to smell really bad. I think it was egg and vinegar. But it was just a really beautiful experience, and it is one of my favorite pieces still that I've made.
Well, that is amazing, because when you sent this to me, I was like, oh, I wonder what museum she was at where she did this.
It looks like
great.
a Klimt, like Gustav.
Yeah.
Yes,
and I was like, oh my gosh, I've never seen that one by him.
Yes, I am. Yeah, and I love Gustav Klimt. Yeah, I have a couple books, so that was kind of.
Yeah, you nailed it. That's
Thank you.
That is amazing. Thank you so much,
all these
Frances.
artistic people, and I'm over here with my bathroom art.
I got my wall of stuffies, man. So, like, that's amazing. And I didn't even
Beautiful, Frances.
pick mine. That is amazing.
It is. It's beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you.
And also with us this week, we have Kristen Brown, who is a reference librarian at the Bedford Branch Library. And tell us about the work that you chose, Kristen.
So the question was, what's your favorite artwork? And being an artist and also being a former art teacher, I was like, what? You can't ask me this. This is chaos. Like, I don't have a favorite artwork, and going through all of the amazing artists that I admire and that I love was just crazy. So I picked this artist. I do love this artist. This is a piece called Maker, and it's by Eugenia Lowley. And I love all of her artwork, and I was kind of in that mood today. So her artwork is super psychedelic. She collects old vintage magazines and newspapers. She scans them in, and then she kind of blows them up, changes the scale, changes a whole bunch of stuff about them, and then puts it on all these really psychedelic galactic images. And so I've used her artworks in the classroom before to talk to students about. There's one that was a close second to this one, and it's like this beautiful couple, and they're on this bridge, and they look so happy, and then behind them it's like a big giant black hole, but it's really a really close up of somebody's eye.
Oh
and
my
if you've ever
goodness.
looked at somebody's iris, and the pupil, it like looks like these sand dunes. It's so crazy. But I really admire her artwork, and just the kind of juxtaposition that she has of like these really wholesome images with these really weird psychedelic backgrounds. And she has one where it's like a ham, and you cut it open and it looks like jewels. It's just, her stuff is so awesome. So that's the one that I picked. So.
That is incredible. And I swear that my mother dressed me in something like that little apron pinafore that she had when I was about that age. I was like, that looks familiar.
Pretty sure I have a picture of myself wearing something nearly identical. Well, that picture always like when I first looked at it, it caught me off guard because I was like, that looks like a pipe and it's a child. But then they had, like, back in the day, it was totally okay to blow bubbles out of a pipe.
Yeah.
It's like, okay.
I knew what it was. I knew that it was
that are planets, but
bubble blowing
they
thing.
don't really do that now.
All right. Well, thank you, Kristen. And now we're going to move into sharing the books that we chose because of the cover art. And I'm going to ask Isabella to go ahead and get us started.
So I have been judging books by their cover since I was probably 6 years old. Seriously, one of my earliest memories of being at the library is at the Ellis branch for like a Thanksgiving program. And I was at the shelves, like pulling one book out after another and putting them back. And a librarian walked over and said, "Oh, can I help you find something?" And I said, "Oh, I judge books by their covers. I'll find something."
Thanks.
And since I work at Donkey Service Center, our administration building, I get to see all the new books, and I judge them all by their covers, and I take home all the fun ones. So if they don't have requests on it. So my first book is The Little Book of Huga, which I processed 3 years ago when it came out in 2017, and I thought, well, this looks adorable. I need like a Danish person, and I absolutely loved it. This book was written by Miek Wiking. I don't know how to pronounce his name, but he is the CEO of, get this, the Happiness Research Institute of Denmark.
Yes.
That's amazing.
Institute, yeah. And so this whole book is little things that I guess like people of like Danish people like take for granted, but that we can learn as people who are not Danish. So it's all about the cozy. It's all about having warm, cozy sweaters, having candles. There was a whole chapter on candlelight, and it's like, oh my goodness, you're right. Candle is the best light. And it really it focuses on all these different things that the Danish people do during the winter because their winters are so long and so dark that it are just simple things to help them feel happy and help them feel so wonderful during this dark time, physically dark time. So there's sections on board games that they love to play, and the pleasure of eating cake. Yeah, absolutely.
I can do that.
Yeah, and just really taking note of when you're in these moments of just true bliss, like noting, ooh, this is Huga. I feel so Huga right now. So it was an adorable book, cute on the inside and out. I literally reference it all the time. Like, we need to make this more Huga. Let's put some twinkle lights up, put on some music. Let me get another sweater on. Yeah, super cute. And then there's a follow-up book called The Little Book of Luga, which is all about creating this cozy atmosphere in your neighborhoods, which I thought was really interesting. The library also has that one. And then he has 2 more books out that I just requested through Melcat. Can't wait for them to come in. I might do a purchase request too, which you can do on our website. But there's one called Making Memories, or the Happy Memories, and it's all about really making sure that when you're in these moments of true happiness that you're embracing all the memories. And then there was another one about happiness, which is like, yeah, I want to read that, of course. So that was my first book that I judged by the cover and loved it. I actually purchased this one, and you know me, I only have 10 books on my bookshelf, and this is one of them. And
I just want to say I'm glad that I now know how to pronounce
it.
Uga, because anytime I've seen that, I'm like, Higgy. Higgy. So now I'm glad that I know that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Uga. Yeah, you're welcome.
I totally put that book on request. I saw the cover and was like, I feel like this is something I would love. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. I love all things Sweden, Denmark, all that stuff. Scandinavian, IKEA. I love IKEA. Yeah, the Nordic calmness, and it's so much.
The culture is beautiful. Yes.
Supposedly they're the happiest people in the world. I want to have.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, the second book that I'm going to talk about is Furiously Happy. I love this book. Also, so on the cover, which you'll see this raccoon, and I believe the author, there was a story in the book about this little raccoon, and the author would find random taxidermied animals and give them just personalities. And I believe that this one had like a caption of, I just want to hug you so hard. Something like that. And so I didn't actually pick this one because of the cover. I loved the author before I saw the cover. And then when I saw it, I was like, oh my goodness, I love it so much. Because I thought back to all the books I read and thought this one makes me furiously happy, and you should judge it by the cover and pick it up. It's a memoir of the author Jenny Lawson. And she has, Let's Pretend This Never Happened, which was her first one. And then this was her second one, third one coming out soon. Can't wait. And it's all.
I didn't know she had another one coming.
I think in 2021. And they're just short stories of life experiences for her. She deals a lot with anxiety and depression, and her stories kind of reflect the struggles that she has, but then also different ways that she combats them. One of the stories is about how it was one of her greatest dreams to go and hug a koala in a koala suit. But she has this crippling anxiety of traveling, and so she had to get over it, and she had to do it so she could literally hug a koala in like a koala onesie. I loved it. I loved her so much.
These are the goals right there. Like, I'm taking notes. I love her, and I haven't read this one, so I need to get it.
I almost read it.
It's great. They're all super funny. It's like a laugh out loud book. You're just like, how, what? I want to be your best friend. And the title Furiously Happy comes from during her bouts of depression, she would say, like, out of anger, like, you know what? Like, I'm so depressed, but I'm going to be furiously happy. Like, I will show you, depression, that I can be so ridiculously happy right now. And I just loved that concept. I loved that idea. And so I literally have an alarm that goes off on my phone at 10:50. I don't know why it's that time, but it goes off every day, and it says, like, you deserve to be furiously happy. And yeah, I know there's so much more than just the cover art going on right now, but it's a great book. And so now I'll do my additional side note because you can see me. A third book I want to talk about. I didn't list it at first because I didn't want to be that kind of daughter. But my third book is The Book of Goodness. Ooh, you can't really see it. Oh, wait, I'll turn off my background thingy because this deserves to be seen. Turn off background effects. There we go. Oh, wait.
There you go.
The Book of Goodness. So this is a book by Lucy Ingalls that's in our collection. I believe it's at Ellis. Ellis Nonfiction. And this is a book that my beautiful, amazing mother wrote. And it's actually an art journal. So it's her art journal. And it's beautiful on the inside and out. And it's full of amazing quotes, different articles that she would find. Like this one's all about how failure is never final. And it's all art that she made.
Wow.
I love it. I judged it by the cover. And Yeah, and this, like I said, is in our collection, the Book of Goodness. And at first, because my mother also works for the library system, so I didn't want to be like telling her secrets. But you should check it out because it's so beautiful, and we're talking about beautiful books.
Yes.
So yeah.
That's incredible. I didn't know that she had that.
Yeah,
She
she
said
does.
that real quiet. That's amazing. Now I'm going to have to go request that one.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I recommend it to everybody.
Well, thank you, Isabella. Those were all awesome. Now I'm feeling super happy.
I know.
Let's just stop now.
Right, we're
I'm
doing
feeling
real
good. Let's just stop now.
Our books aren't that good.
That's right. Because I'm going to get to my books and be like, and here's another depressing book.
No, mine are depressing.
I know that. Well, that most of
Something
mine.
gets beheaded.
And actually, let's have Frances go ahead and go next and share her books that she chose based on the cover.
Okay. So the first book I have is called News of the World by Paulette Giles. And I actually chose this one for a book club. This is my first year doing a book club, and it's historic fiction, and that's completely out of anything that I've ever read before. I was never a historical fiction reader, so I wanted to kind of step out of my comfort zone. So I was a little bit in the dark when I was picking my titles, and I asked for some people to give me some feedback. So this was on one of the lists of the kits that we actually have at the library. And when I saw the cover, I didn't even need to read about it. It just really just drew me in. And I think the colors kind of reminded me a little bit of like a Maxfield Parrish type of a painting, but just to see that beautiful blue sky and the landscape and the clouds, and it just really drew me in. And it really is a wonderful story. And personally, I feel it should be made into a movie, maybe with George Clooney as the captain. And what it is, it happens during the Civil War. And Captain Jefferson Kyle Kidd is an itinerant reader of newspapers. So he goes from town to town and he reads people the news. And I'm assuming like a lot of people probably normally wouldn't get a newspaper or read. So they really relied on him to do this. So he was kind of a figure of standing in the community. And people look forward to him coming to their town, and they'd actually pay him to read the news. So he gets paid, I think, a $50 gold piece to find this little girl that had been captured by the Kiowa. And they were asking him to do it since he had been in the war before, and they figured that he would be very brave and he would, you know, go find this little girl and bring her back to her family. The only caveat, I guess, is that the family he was taking her back to really didn't want her. And she was 10 years old and her parents were killed. And I'm sorry, I'm kind of blanking out here a little bit, but he had to find her and take her back to her family, which was her aunt and uncle. But the story is really interesting, all the things that they go through as they travel the country together. So it's challenging for him, and many times he just wants to quit and take her back to the Kiowa. And it reminds me a little bit of like a John Wayne kind of a movie, and I think there was something similar where he has to rescue a young girl.
We did that one for book club as well, and it's so good. That relationship that builds up between him and her over time as he tries to, because that's the only life she's known, and he has such a deep empathy for her that he's pulling her out of that and taking her somewhere completely unknown. It was really good.
Yeah, it was. I thought it was really good. And again, I hope they make it into a movie. I think it would be really incredible.
Were you going to say something, Kristen?
Oh, I was just going to say that we had talked about this earlier, but that storyline, I thought of the Magdalorian. I was like, oh my gosh, it's their relationship.
It's the Mandalorian.
I was like,
thing. It's Mando and it's baby, the child.
I know, that's why that's why I was like, oh my gosh, but then I was like, that's not really the same. But just having that relationship, my brain was like, oh my gosh, that does kind of sound like
it's sort of the same. And the Mandalorian is a space western, so you know, if you haven't watched it, season 2 out today. Watch season 1 first. Thank you, Frances. And your other title.
The other title is The Crown of Blood, and I saw this. I think I read it around the first the first year that I was working at the library, and it must have been a book that I was putting away, so it kind of got my attention. But the painting on the cover is very intriguing, and she's blindfolded, and I knew nothing of Lady Jane Grey. I know a little bit about some of the Tudors and kind of read some of the stories about that, but I was really intrigued by it. So I looked it up and found out that she had been the queen for, they call her the 9-day queen, but actually I guess it was actually 13 days that she was queen. And she really was used as a pawn in order for these families that were fighting to get control of England. And eventually Mary does become queen because they have Lady Jane Grey beheaded, unfortunately, and she was only like 16 or 17 years old. So, they actually had revealed some facts in the book that had never been known before, but it's just a real interesting story about her, and it's very, very tragic. So I think I'm kind of drawn to tragic figures. But I found it really, really fascinating. And even if you're not a history buff or you're not into the Tudors or England, it still really is an intriguing read about her.
And I don't know anything about Lady Jane Grey either, but I did love that cover. Like,
yeah.
I saw it, I was like, why is she blindfolded? Like, and then the title, Crown of Blood, I was like, did they do something terrible to her head? You know, I was like, I don't know. But it definitely was an intriguing cover.
Spoiler alert, yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So thank you, Frances. And let's have Jen share her books that she chose by the cover.
So my first book is Daughter of Blood and Bone by Laini Taylor. And this was one, our Daughter of Smoke and Bone, sorry. There's another book that has a very similar title, and I always confuse them. Daughter of Smoke and Bone by Laini Taylor. And I actually did read this for my book club, but I think most of us selected it. Like, we always vote on what we're going to read. It's just pretty. I love the black and white, and then you have the bright blue of her mask. It's just pretty, and I like pretty. And apparently I like blue, as you can see by both of these covers. So
well, I just love how both of your covers went together.
They do.
And then it kind of worked with the color scheme of the sides. Yeah. I thought that was cool.
I will say so. I was reading, it's been a while since I've read this book, so I was kind of like refreshing myself on the plot today. And I got to call you out a little bit, Jennifer. I was laughing, looking at Goodreads and reading other people's reviews, and
yeah, you did not.
You did not like
No, I did not love it. It was not for me.
It's not your cup of tea. It's totally up my alley. So what it is the main character's name is Carew, and she is an art student in Prague. And you know right away that her life is a little bit weird. Not Peru. I think I said Peru. In Prague. I said Prague. Her name is Carew. I'm having issues. So Carew is an art student, and you quickly learn that she has grown up with a man, kind of, named Brimstone, and some other people that are not really human. They're what they call chimera, that are actually kind of a cross between a human and an animal. And Carew has basically grown up sort of in between worlds. They live in the sort of almost like a little pocket dimension between Earth, our world, and Eretz, which is this other magical world. And Carew's job for Brimstone is she collects teeth. And in return for teeth, he gives her things that can be used as wishes. And so, like the bright blue cover, one of the things that you learn pretty quickly is Carew has blue hair. Well, it's really blue. Her hair grows blue because she's used one of her wishes to have blue hair. And she doesn't know what she collects the teeth for. Like, but there are rules with it. They can't be rotten. They can't be kids' teeth or baby teeth. They need to be like healthy adult teeth. And she doesn't know what they're being used for. And of course, she does find out. But one day she's on an errand for Brimstone, and she comes back and she discovers there are doors all over the world that sort of lead to this other little like pocket dimension. And one of Brimstone's doors has a giant hand, like a black handprint on it, and she can't go through. And so in figuring out what's happened to Brimstone and what's happened to the other people that she's grown up with and where these black marks are coming from, she also meets some other people. And you end up kind of learning that there is a war happening in this other land. I keep going in and out weirdly. Between the Chimera and the Seraphim, who are basically like angels. And she gets drawn into this. It's very fantasy heavy, obviously. It sounds completely crazy. But I was so drawn to this book. The cover is beautiful and the writing is absolutely beautiful. If you're not into fantasy, or like Jennifer, you're not so into like star-crossed lovers, there's a little bit of that happening. It's not your cup of tea, but I loved this book. I thought the writing was absolutely beautiful. If you like fantasy, if you like, other worlds, like, this book is fantastic. And I loved it. I thought that it was so incredibly well done. There's 3 books in the series. The second book I thought was even more beautiful than the first one. Like, just the writing, it's almost lyrical. And I felt like so entranced with this book. So that's that one. My second book is Shiver by Maggie Stiefvater. And this is a different take on werewolves. Our main character is, and see, that's just so pretty. It's so like, what's happening here? There's woods, it's a little bit dark, there's a wolf, kind of like, what's happening? Got little hearts. The main character's name is Grace, and you find out pretty early that when she was a kid, when she's like 10, 11, might have even been a little bit younger, she was attacked by wolves and survived because one of the wolves intervened. And she remembers specifically this wolf because he had bright yellow eyes. Well, something happens in town and a kid is attacked, and all of a sudden this boy shows up on her doorstep. So this kid is attacked. Men of the town go out to hunt down the wolves, and all of a sudden this boy shows up on her doorstep with a gunshot wound. That's weird. And he has bright yellow eyes. And she realizes pretty quickly that, oh, this is my wolf. This is the thing that saved me when I was a little girl. And it's just a very different take on werewolves. Of course, both of these books are YA, so there's a little bit of love, but there's a little bit of intrigue. This is also the first in a series. I believe there are 3 books in this one as well. But this one's just really nicely done. It's I don't want to give away what the different take on the werewolves is, but it's a little bit different than we normally do. And Grace gets caught up in this sort of plot with Sam, he's her wolf, and Sam's family, or the people that have raised him. And there are people that want a cure, and she has an idea of how she can possibly cure these people from turning into their wolf half. And so it's kind of, do they want that? Do they not want that? She was attacked and she never became a werewolf. So like, what kept her from what is her connection to these wolves? It's just a really, really lovely story.
Thank you, Jen, for your beautiful blue books. And we'll have Kristen share the book she chose based on their covers.
Okay, so the first one I'm going to talk about is called Medieval Bodies, Life and Death in the Middle Ages. And so I think it's pretty obvious why this cover would get somebody's interest. Although I'm sure some people would be like, nope, that's not for me. But I was like, wow, that's fascinating. This looks like it would have a lot of cool pictures in it. So being a former art history student, I was super fascinated in medieval art and kind of just the way that people lived during that time. Religion was such a huge factor in their life, and they were so sheltered on the things that they knew and what they the kind of tools and things that they could to like work with. So this book is really cool in that it explains all of the interesting facts, gross facts of the medieval ages, but the author, Jack Hartnell, does a really great job of dividing it up by body parts, so to say. So like one section just talks about the head, and so he talks about mental illness, beheading, which was a huge thing in the Middle Ages, and even a little bit after that. He talks about the heart, the skins, the bones, the hands, and then he breaks them down into these subsections that are really interesting. So this book did not disappoint. If you like doing research on medieval age or anything history like that, it's really awesome. It is super heavy on the religious aspect. Most of the images inside the book are based on, like old manuscripts and old documents that have religious images in them. There is also another edition of this book, and it's called Medieval Bodies, Life, Death, and Art in the Middle Ages. And that one is super awesome as well. That one has a lot more visual in it that's just as interesting. And so if you're into weird facts about medieval things, this is the book for you. So there's more text than images, but it's definitely super fascinating to read about all of the superstitions they had, and just like the fact that they thought like hair growing on your body was like your sweat coming out of your pores. Like it's just weird stuff that you're like, that's not even real.
But
no, but like nobody really knew about any. They didn't have the science to research that, and
So,
all
like,
just
if you
the
were
weird.
a super hairy guy, do they just assume, man, that guy sweats a lot?
Yeah, yeah, like they're just your pores. That's what they thought. Like, okay, you're just sweating, so your hair is coming out. Just the, like the crazy stuff. Some of the stuff we already know. If you were sick, they would put the leeches on you, or the bloodletting. Like, hello, that's. Somebody's sick, let's just take a lot of their blood out and see if that fixes them. That's not really, that doesn't work that way. So that's a really fascinating book. I highly recommend that, or even the other copy that includes the art of the medieval ages is super interesting as well. My second book is called Sky in the Deep. And I was in the thick of the last season of Vikings when I came across this book, and she looked like Lagatha, and I was like, oh, Lagatha. If you don't know who Lagatha is, I'm sorry, man, because she's amazing. You need to figure out who this woman is. So I had just gotten back into reading young adult novels too. So it was a YA. I was looking at Vikings, but I'm really glad that I came across this book. It was one of those where it was just a whim. I didn't know for sure if I would like it or not, but because it is a historical book and I'm drawn to those, it ended up working out really well. It's based on this really BA teenage main character. Her name is Aelin, and it's about these two Viking clans that are always feuding because the gods that they pray to are also feuding, and so they're just carrying that down onto Earth. And so she is from the Aska clan, and the other clan is the Riki clan. And during a fight or a war, she ends up seeing her brother, who she thought had died, and he is fighting on the enemy side. And so it just kind of stops her world for a second. And then a series of events happens, and she ends up meeting this guy named Fisk. And she forms a relationship with Fisk, but that's because he has to kidnap her in order to save her life. So she ends up becoming kind of an indentured servant, or, slave to the Riki clan in order, with Fisk and her brother's family, so that the other people in the clan do not kill her for being from the opposite clan. And then through that, another series of events happens where at the end of the book, they all have to kind of come together and fight for this main cause. So what really struck me, and like Jen said, it's a YA, so there's a little bit of romance, but I really liked Fisk and Aelin's relationship. It was kind of like that thing where they don't want to be together, they're enemies, that Romeo and Juliet thing. And there is a second one in the series. I checked it out at one point and then I never got a chance to read it. But if that sounds like it's something interesting to you, it's called The Girl the Sea Gave Back. So it's just really great writing. It's a great book. It was a pretty quick read, so I'm glad I picked that one up.
Nice. Thank you, Kristen. And for my books that I picked up solely based on the cover, the first one is Tell the Wolves I'm Home. And if you can see the cover there on your screen, it's green. It has this, what looked to me like a fairy tale teapot, maybe an Aladdin's lamp. It has a wolf, and it has a girl's head. And I thought I was going to get some sort of fantasy retold fairy tale. And I was ready for that. And that's what I thought I was going to get. And I picked it up and it is not that at all. But it was amazing. And I just feel sometimes books just hit you at the right time. And if you had read it, like 2 weeks earlier, you would have been like, bleh, I hated it. So I think sometimes you just need the right book at the right time. And I picked this one up and I just fell in love with it. It's a coming of age story of 14-year-old June. And June has never felt comfortable in her own skin. She's always been very shy. She doesn't feel that she fits in and is understood by her family. And she is desperate almost to live in medieval times. She feels like she's just out of time. She loves the arts. She loves Mozart's Requiem. Her Uncle Finn takes her, she lives in New York City, and he takes her to the Cloisters Museum, which is all about medieval art. He spends so much time with her. She feels like he is her person. But when she's 14, he passes away. And shortly after that passing, she receives a teapot in the mail that is sent to her. And inside the teapot, there's a note from somebody named Toby that says that he would like to meet her and spend time with her and talk to her about Finn. And she and Toby end up grieving together their loss of Finn. And the book is set in the 80s. So you might be able to guess from that what Finn passed away from. But it's this beautiful book about loss and not knowing who you are and feeling that your entire family doesn't understand you at all. And it's also about those sort of cruelties that we do every day that we don't really think about. And at some point in the book, June says, she's talking about wolves, and she says something to the effect that, when wolves do things that seem cruel, if they kill another animal, it's not because they're evil, it's because they are greedy and they are self-centered. And she starts coming out of her shell and seeing her family differently and understanding that the things that hurt her aren't meant to hurt her. It's coming sometimes from a place of hurt in her family or a place of selfishness in her family. And she starts to see that in herself as well. And so it's that age where you start seeing beyond yourself and you start seeing others as others with lives and that you can have compassion for them. So it has those awkward moments. It has beautiful moments. I really loved this book. I will say we read it for book club and I couldn't manage to make everybody else fall in love with it the way I did. So it's not for everybody, but it's a really lovely book. The other book that I chose based on the cover and the title. So the cover has this ship out in the middle of a sea or an ocean, and it looks calm, and I love the ocean. I've always believed that if I lived by the ocean, I would actually be a better person because it's so calming. And it lets you know that you are a small speck in the world, and here's this vast ocean. So that drew me in, and then the title is The Lifeboat. And that interested me enough to pick it up because I don't know how many of you at some point either heard of or actually had to do the lifeboat game, possibly in an ethics course, where they tell you, there's 10 people in a lifeboat, the lifeboat can only hold 5 and everybody survive. Here's a description of all 10 people on the lifeboat. Who do you throw overboard? And then typically they put you into like a small group and you all have to discuss the ethics of who do you save and who do you lose. So it's a terrible game. Nobody wants to be making those decisions. But I remember that, and then seeing the picture in this calm ocean, I was like, ooh, I'm going to pick this up. So it is historical fiction, and it is set in the summer of 1914. And Grace Winter has just recently married very quickly. And Grace, she's quickly learned, it's all in first person narration, is a social climber. She wants to move up. She has found a husband that has money. She seems to be making her way in the world. And then they get on this fictional ship to cross the ocean, and the ship goes down. Grace's husband gets her onto a lifeboat, and the ship goes down. He's lost at sea. And so there's this lifeboat that can hold, it's made for 40, and there's 39 of them on the boat. And they for 21 days on that boat. Yeah, 21 days. Like, what are you doing for food? What are you doing for shelter? What are you doing for all these things? And you find out early on in the book, as Grace is telling her story, that she's now on trial because not everybody survived that lifeboat of 39 people. And she and 2 other women are being accused of being the cause for why some of those people did not survive. So you're seeing some of the story from the trial as well. If you don't like books with unlikable narrators, you probably shouldn't pick this up because Grace is complex and she is not always likable. She has some pretty clear goals in mind of where she wants to get. And if you're in the way, she's going to move you out of the way. But it was fascinating. There's a lot going on because there's the trial. There's looking back at what happened on the lifeboat. There's also, it's 1914. And the people on the boat who are accused are all women. There's some gender politics going on there. It's not overt, but that's definitely, I feel, in play as part of what's happening here. So I was really glad that I picked it up. Again, this is another book. I said, hey, book club, we should read this. And again, it was very split. Like some of them were like, oh, it was really fascinating. And some of them were like, we hated that. So book club is complicated. That's why book club is great because everybody's got a point of view and it makes me read things I wouldn't otherwise read. So those are my 2 books that I chose because of the cover. And next week, we are going to be sharing our favorite picture books because November is picture book month. So we're going to be talking about picture books. And if you're out there and you're like, I don't want to hear about picture books, really, you should tune in. There's such a wide variety of picture books. Some of the nonfiction picture books that are out there now are teaching me things that I didn't know about science and history. So those are amazing. Some of the artwork in these books is amazing. And if you just need to laugh, there is nothing better than sitting down with a really funny picture book. So even if you don't have littles in your life and you're like, not picture books, tune in next week. There are some amazing things happening in the world of picture books.
You're never too old for a picture book.
You're never too old for a picture book. So that's what we'll be talking about this week. Thank you to all of you for sharing your books that you chose because of the cover. Thank you to everyone that listened, and we hope that you have great weeks. Bye.